Yes, you read the title correctly. This is the one amp that I liked and used the most. It was my trusted companion, even in the presence of the amps that did some parts better than this amp back in the day. And there's a reason for that, and that is control and quality of every aspect of dynamic scale. And you can even say understanding what being an audiophile is all about. It's not a competition, it's not an overwhelming arc in one aspect of sound or another. It is musicality and pleasing the listener, allowing them to extend their wings in different genres and help them to get the most out of it. But certainly not putting all your cards in one hand, rather properly distributing it for just careless sonic pleasures without a fuzz or buzz. I know I sounded a bit dramatic here, I know, but to put it simply, Rotel managed to always be a trustworthy companion that controlled and molded every song correctly, no matter whether the song was bright, warm, or neutral in production. And in that way, this amp truly elevates many anxieties surrounding hi-fi. But let's start with an amp that I was a huge fan of, and that is the Rotel A11 Tribute. And maybe I should start by comparing the two. What you get, what you lose, and you mostly get. And this is a continuation of a great amp designed by the late Ken Ishiwata. That's where the tribute in the name comes from. Firstly, aesthetics. I am not a fan of either the A11 Tribute or the Mk2, but the smaller form factor of the Mk2 is in my opinion far more sleeker than the bigger Tribute. And yes, a big change up front is that there is no more screen, which was present in the Tribute. I personally don't mind, I welcome this change if it reflects in sound quality. What I mind is one less analog port. Please, we need as many as we can, don't remove them. Neither of them has a subwoofer out, which I think is a big omission and hopefully something that they will improve in the future. For those who are interested, Bluetooth has been improved to a better version of aptX with aptX HT and adaptive. But the biggest change is the DAC. To me, this is a bit of a weak point in the Tribute, but it has received a significant boost here. It is still a Texas Instruments, but now boasting 32-bit conversion, and it sounds much better than its predecessor. But in reality, the Tribute had to walk in order for the Mk2 to run. Everything great about Tribute is a bit better here, a bit better soundstage, detail retrieval, bass extension, etc. A bit more at every departure, and to my pleasure, it's even more neutral than a little bit bright sound of the previous model. The question, should you upgrade, is a bit harder to answer. Is the Mk2 better than the Tribute? Yes, it is, but in my opinion, it's not even close to being good enough to warrant an upgrade from the previous model. So unless yours got lost, stolen, broken, or just sold so you could buy another piece of gear in the past, then it's not something I would recommend. But let's talk about sound, the reason why all of us are here. The sound of Rotel is the sound of a hard-working father who returned home and can successfully continue his transition into house chores while emotionally supporting his family. What I wanted to say is that Rotel is your all-around reliable, balanced sound that can acclimate to any sonic situation with a great success. It is not the best as it does not have the time to be the best, but it does everything and you can really see effort and control in it. That control is what you came here for. It is a neutral amp, there are no spikes or recurves, none of that stuff. But across the bass, mids and treble, there is a great control of sound. With its neutrality, the amp can focus and exercise great timing and precision. It of course highly depends on how you pair this amp with which speakers, like any other amp, but it has a firm grasp of the sound. It is supposed to reproduce, and it has helped speakers maintain their poise, but also color them how they like. But it has a firm grasp of the sound. It is supposed to reproduce, and it helps speakers maintain their poise, but also allowing them to color them however they like. Clarity and separation of instruments are great here. I actually think one of the most underrated aspects of the A11 is its soundstage. I love how it articulates instruments on a soundstage, how it gives them space to breathe and communicate with each other. I love the separation that this amp does, even though without using an external DAC, you will not get that blackest background. However, I think the shape and form of instruments are detailed. It's spread out vertically and horizontally really well. And this provides you with the details, which in the end is important. This is a neutral amp aimed towards more clinical listeners, and clinical listeners do love their details. It helps them distinguish what is going on in the composition, and while this is not the absolute last word in details in this price range, it compels the mids to remain uncluttered no matter the complexity of the song, and I really love that. Hopefully you do too. They lack a bit of forwardness, energy and precision to make them world class, but for those with the clinical ears, you hear everything: the production, the organics, the properties of sound. The treble and the bass are really decent here. They don't extend too much, but are nicely controlled and have decent details to them, which is really great. While the treble is not bursting with energy, you can hear nice separation among the percussion and the top end of the instruments. They are very rounded but a bit polite as well. Your analytical mind will be satisfied there, and it will pierce through the mix so you can hear it. Just don't expect too much energy punch or passion here. The same thing can be said for the bass. But maybe I would love to see this amp help your speakers push more air through them. It was nicely controlled and detailed bass, but there wasn't so much command here, and I wish there was more power and attack in the bass coming from this amp. Not a big minus by any means, but I still think there is room for improvement here in the future. Just make the bass have more weight and presence. Now we can continue to the cons of this amp. While the bass is definitely a bit of a disappointment, I think this amp is extremely well rounded, and that could be its greatest strength but also its greatest weakness. It all depends on how you perceive your sound and what you want, as this amp will not be king in its price range in any category. For those who want like an energetic amp, you can get that for the same price in a different device. More bass or more soundstage, same deal. From my experience, I can definitely say that I felt it needed to do a bit more in treble and bass to make it more characteristic, more special. If it had a bit more energy and details there, I think this amp would be a killer in this price range, however you look at it. But for now, some amps do these things better. Maybe a small issue I have with this device is the lack of sub-out and perhaps not enough connections. But that is just my wishful thinking. Maybe we can see more future Rotel amps with integrated streamers, like the Audiolab 6000A Play for example, and similar models. I think that would broaden its appeal to more listeners and make it a more popular device. Pairing is fantastic with this amp, as I think its more balanced approach to sound signature can accommodate many different speakers. It helps your speakers color the sound however they like. It is an amp that is more in a servant role to the speakers rather than commanding the sound signature. But like with many balanced amps, the worst combination for me is neutral plus neutral, unless you are really like a clinical listener and you need utmost details and clarity. I actually prefer that the speakers are more on a treble or bass side of things. I loved this amp with the dolly speakers. That combination is a killer. Also, Q Acoustics was a really nice combination, and some Klipsch's as well. Those speakers are the ones I see great synergy with. I want to make my words clearer regarding the title of this video, and I will compare this with some amps I have listened to a lot that are great in this price range, how it fares against them. I will talk about the Denon Pma600, Rega Brio, Audiolab 6000A and Cambridge Audio CXA61. All of these reviews you will find on my channel and in the description of this video, so you can click on them and watch them for more details. The Denon Pma600ne is a great amp. It's a dark and weighty and perfect for bright speakers. Denon has more weight, more control and attack in its bass. Its vocals are a bit weightier, even smoother to some extent. Denon has an amazing phonostage inside, which I also forgot to mention about Rotel. The phonostage on the Rotel is great, it really is. Not maybe on a Denon's level, but it does provide a lot of value, where for most amps this is an afterthought. But Rotel has a more clearer and transparent presentation. Its soundstage is bigger and a bit better defined. Rotel's treble is more open and vivid, less veiled. It just works better for a larger variety of music and sounds, except for movies, where Denon is a much better choice, which also has a subwoofer out. The same thing can be said for like Marantz 6007, which has a more musical, smooth sound, one that is a pleasure to listen to in the long run. But in the end, it has the same good and bad as Denon, and the same reflects in comparison to Rotel, except Marantz has this very pretty and weighty smoothness where vocals sound just amazing, better than the Rotel or Denon. But the same goes here, like exceptional bass, but not as developed in the treble and in the mids, where Rotel is better. Rega Brio is also another interesting choice. Rega is one of those specialized amps. It's specialized in treble, energy and detail retrieval. Rega has a superior treble, it is full of energy and its detail extraction is amazing, especially in a treble. It is a fun and punchy sound, but it lacks a bit of Rotel's finesse in presentation and control. Rotel has more vividness and clearness, more decluttering in a midsection, and more transparency overall. None of them have exceptional bass, but Rotel is a more pronounced, a little bit more pronounced, but Rotel has also have a significantly better soundstage and a better phonostage. It is more balanced, so the presentation is equally distributed. But if you're a fan of a punchy, detailed sound, then maybe the far better choice is Rega, because that makes more sense for you. The Audiolab 6000A is a highly favored choice in this price range, and for a good reason. It has a bit more of an airy sound compared to Rotel's more controlled one. But Audiolab manages to have a great richness in the midsection, providing a more open and forward presentation of instruments there. It also has an exceptional openness and soundstage in this price range, which Rotel does well, but Audiolab does better. And where this is mostly noticeable is in its dispersion, how Audiolab opens vertically and horizontally the sound. However, my problem with Audiolab is how a bit anemic it sounds with bass and treble, and I know this was also a criticism of the Rotel, but here Audiolab sound is very airy and it's noticeable how it lacks character and definition. Rotel was extracting more details, it was more firm in both bass and treble, making it more versatile for different types of listening. Now, which one is better is a super hard choice. When Audiolab hits, it hits hard and sounds amazing, reaching heights that Rotel can't quite reach. But in other scenarios where the music requires a deep complexity in the mids or more energy or bass, Rotel showed more dependency. So listen to both and choose whichever fits your preferences the best. Cambridge Audio CXA61 is a similar choice to the Rotel. Reflecting on my review of the Cambridge Audio I did, I feel like I might have been a bit too harsh on it. It's a great dynamic amp that provides a fun sound and has a lot of great inputs and outputs, etc. Its toolkit is definitely more diverse and better than the Rotel's. Even the internal DAC might be a slightly better on the Cambridge Audio than it is on a Rotel. Treble and bass have more definition and presence with the Cambridge Audio. And all of that is true, but I still prefer the Rotel a little bit. And in a simple terms, I liked more how clear and transparent the Rotel sounded, how I could catch more details, how it never overwhelmed me, and how I could use whatever speakers I want with them, which wasn't the case unfortunately with the Cambridge Audio. The song sounded a bit more concise and focused with Rotel, even though there was a more energy and weight pushed through Cambridge Audio. It could go both ways in my opinion. These amps are great and either could be for you or not for you, but you have to listen to them and see them for yourselves. In the end, I've recommended a few great amps, and one might be more for you than the others. It's all about the personal taste. Hi-Fi at this level is all about taste building. You're experimenting and discovering yourself. You must understand what you value the most as a listener, as in this price range you will get that with compromises on the other end. Balanced amps in this range are a little bit more problem-free, but they tend to not be as competitive as the best in class. And sometimes that's exactly what you need, especially if you don't change amps that often. And most of the time it was enough for me. It was a great in every aspect, while some amps did better like soundstage, bass, treble, etc. Rotel managed to follow them and to be good as well, but also to be good in every other aspect rather than, some amps which are phenomenal, for example in treble, lacks in other aspects in this price range. And that's what made this amp so great. It is good at every aspect. It's a trusty companion. Its focus, concise reproduction makes this amp act like a chameleon and adjust itself to any sonic background you put on it. It will not blow you away immediately, no. This amp will grow on you. It will take time, but during that time you will understand how great and versatile it is. You will enjoy the time spent with it and how it accompanies you, and its balanced nature full of details with a good soundstage will please you so much. Thank you so much for watching this review. I hope you really enjoyed it, and if so, please consider liking and subscribing. All the best, keep daydreaming, and see you on the next video. Bye!